Friday. Unless I'm losing my mind and it's Thursday or Tuesday, but I'm pretty sure it's Friday. When you don't have kids in school and you're self-employed, sometimes the days are just days. There we go. Got all messages on. Wait for some folks to roll in, have some tea, start answering some questions. Oh, I'm not all there today. I had a horrible histamine reaction yesterday, so my brain's all, what? It takes a while for like histamine to clear the brain, so you know it can just kind of be a thing. And I did it to myself earlier that day too, so I was asking for it. So, living through that reality, and everything sounds like I'm underwater because it swells up like your internal tubes. Hey, everybody, rolling in. I'm gonna make some tea if I can get my hands to work. Okay. I'm gonna make this early spring Choi Ming. Probably said that totally wrong. Premium Yunnan green tea from Yunnan sourcing. I've not tried this one before, so we're gonna find out. It smells nice. Oh, you know, one of the ways you can tell some high quality teas is you see that yellow stuff inside the back, and you're like, oh my god, it's mold, or oh my god, it's all powdery. That is tea resin. Really, it's like, you know how weed has keef? I don't even smoke weed, but most of you know that it has, like, you know, really high quality tea has that too, and it's not been processed enough that it falls off, right? So when you see that, and I see that, I know this might be a beautiful, beautiful tea. Hey, everybody rolling in. Somebody said it's been a while since I've been able to join the live, but I've been racking up a list of questions. Yeah, I feel like, well, I know this is gonna work. I'm just gonna pour it in there. I know that lately the only thing I've been doing is the Friday Q&As and the member Q&As on Sunday. I need to get back into videos. It's just like I'm in that weird transition period between like winter and spring, and just getting my brain back to a functioning level. So I know I need to start making videos, but I think I'm gonna start doing some like plant walk videos. I've got hundreds of videos where I introduce you to individual plants in the wild, but maybe just like walking around and talking about shit, you know. How is Walula, my puppy, doing? She's probably about 180 pounds of still a dork. She's doing good. She's a good dog. She's a big girl, still has a couple years to grow, so she's going to be a big one. We're going to do 175 for this tea because I did not look up any heat preferences for it. But it's a green tea, so usually they say 170 or 180, so I figure 175 is a good place to start for the tea. Yeah, Lula's doing pretty good. We are in the process of building a very big, bad goat pen, but big pasture, right? And it's gonna be hot wire, but serious. Like, I'm so tired. For anybody who runs a homestead at a farm, I fucking hate the solar hot wire. I hate solar fencing. You know, like electric fences. They're just pathetic. I mean, they're just the suggestion. So we saved up and threw down for a very serious hardwire to real electricity box. So, we're working on a really big pasture area for the goats and for her to be in, but I want that, like, this wire is meant to stop, like, enraged bulls. So it should stop her and anything going out. Not that she wants to run away or anything, but because we do live next to people and she's a very serious livestock guardian dog, we take her containment very seriously. It's not the same as a Pyrenees wandering off somewhere, you know. So that's what we've been slowly working on. And then today I am gonna go plant a few things in the garden. I'm so behind on garden stuff, you guys. I don't know. I'm taking it one day at a time, and I'll have what I have. That is just, but I do have kale coming up in the greenhouse, and I got tons of carrots coming up because I did a bunch of winter sowing, you know. But yeah, I don't know. Somebody said, oh, they want to know how the tree cutting thing is going. Well, I submitted my complaint, and they do their own review of the complaint. So I'm sure that I will literally never hear back from them again. Right, and it's so fucked up. Like, because they're a co-op, they don't have an overviewing body, like a normal electricity company would have like an overviewing like of the whole state. Like you have to like follow safety codes and stuff. But when they're a co-op and they're not a publicly traded electricity company, they don't have to follow any of that shit. So I'll probably never hear anything of it, you know. But yeah, somebody said any real farmer's wife, kids work super hard. Be kind to yourself. You can only do so much. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do it all, and bless my husband's heart, he does a lot of it. But I don't know. Our soil sucks really bad too. Even with like years of like, man, I even scraped off like where like the cattle got fed for years, and so it was like lots of like feed alfalfa here because it's abundant here. It's not super crazy expensive, and it's cleaner than hay. Um, as far as like pesticides and herbicides go, but I even scraped all that up like it was basically like a big compost area. And like you'd look at the cows and you'd think that we kept them in a feedlot, but they just decide to stand in that one area even though they have all of the pasture. But anyhow, that meant I had a lot of compost built up, right? And it didn't even matter. It mattered a little bit, but it was just like, you know, I've got a lot of alfalfa to put over the area this year. I'm gonna clean out the goat barn pretty soon and just put that right on top. You can use goat shit right away in your garden. It's a lot like rabbit. The problem is the urine, but what's it gonna do? Make my soil worse? You know, I know some people are worried about the nitrogen acquisition from the alfalfa, but I'm just not. Because any amount that it takes, it'll be surpassed by what it puts in just because it's not there. It's crazy. But yeah, so today I just kind of want to get actually some flowers in the ground, and that's about it. Now I want to get some flowers in the ground. I'm going to work on cutting down some rose bushes. Don't freak out. We have 41 acres ish, and it's covered in invasive roses. Yes, they're pretty when they're blooming. Yes, I use their rose hips, but there are literally thousands of them, and you have scars all over your body, even if you're wearing pants where they cut you. And so, yeah, I've got to cut them a section down because I want to make the bigger pasture, and it's like in the way. Um, but yeah, somebody said sorry, my phone is more dyslexic than I am. Yeah, yeah, I feel that, but I'm probably more fucking dyslexic than my phone, if I'm being honest with myself. Uh, but, uh, but yeah, so I've just been kind of, I don't know, I felt like shit yesterday because of histamine reactions, and then the day before, and so, like, it builds up kind of like a cup in your system, right? And then, like, so I'm gonna have a come to Jesus moment with myself again about like what I can and can't eat until my system calms down. I know what's causing it. I don't get enough B12 into my cells, but I've been having symptoms of low potassium, so I'm hesitant to take the B12 shots that I need until I get that built back up because B12 depletes potassium, right? But you know, it'll be okay. I'm making forward progress. I still feel better than I have in a long time since discovering that fucking carnitine deficiency, and healing isn't linear, so it's just one day at a time. But I do know I need to get my tomatoes started or buy them. It's got to be one or the other, April. But I bought specific seeds for this year, and I only need to start like 10 seeds. So come on, April, right? Like, so I just need to do it. I just need to do it. It's just kind of been one of those, like, as you heal, you feel better, but your body's like, now I can rest situations, you know? Um, but yeah, I've just been, I don't know, in a weird linear place. And it's been freaking me out a little bit that I feel happy. But, like, I'm not saying I've never been happy, but, like, on occasion I told my husband, I'm like, I'm just smiling for no reason. Ooh, that smells really nice. Made my mouth water, so it's got lots of good phenols in it. I just have moments where I'm like smiling like a fucking dork for no reason, and I'm like, I don't know, I just feel happy, and that freaked me out for a little while because I mean, I'm not saying I'm never happy, but like usually there's a reason behind it versus just experiencing it, and it's from the carnitine, and now that's not like a happy pill for everybody. It's just that like I've been deficient for apparently my entire life. And correcting that and getting like my brain to calm down after finally giving it what it needs is like making my parasympathetic nervous system kick on. Sometimes I just feel high. I'm like, everything feels kind of weird, but I know it's just because it's a shift in my parasympathetic nervous system. I'm not actually high, you know. I'm just like, what's happening here? I'm like happy and shit. Um, so, but on the flip side, when I have a rough day, it can be a little more emotional than usual because I'm like, oh great, going back to this, right? Okay, let's see how this new tea tastes. Doing it live, folks. That's pretty nice. It's not dry. I don't like a dry tea where it's like high in tannins and it like dries your mouth out. It's really subtle. I might have to like, it's very vegetal, very like spring, grassy. I might have to like play around with the time and the amount and the temperature. So if you don't like a tea, if you feel like it doesn't have very much flavor, it might be too hot of water, or too cold of water, or too short of a steep, and you have to kind of play around with it, right? Okay, so somebody said I have firsthand seen the benefits of ketamine therapy in my loved ones, and I'm glad it's been working for you too. Yeah, ketamine is amazing. But beyond the fact for depression, that wasn't even a question. My brain's like, sure, let me. So if you have a question, say question. Uh, Ketamine has the capacity to also like rebuild like olfactory nerve endings, which is what you smell with. So like if you've lost your sense of smell, especially if you got the thing from 2020, that's something to look into. Now, if you've lost your sense of smell before then, make sure that you get like your copper zinc ratio levels tested, because sometimes too much zinc or not enough copper either way can make you lose your sense of smell and taste. But most days it's from the thing that happened in 2020, and ketamine brings it right back. It's pretty crazy. um, I think it's pretty fantastic for people who are living with depression and anxiety and OCD, and especially like non-treatable. Although I still want people to look into their nutrient profile, because sometimes treatment resistant depression actually means that you have like no riboflavin in your body, you're low on niacin, you have no B1, you have no B12, you're, you know. And so like I'm not saying that there isn't stuff like in that ketamine wouldn't help and that therapy doesn't help, but like you always feel like you're gonna fucking die and that you would be easier to die if your body doesn't have what it needs. And B vitamins are highly linked to severe depression, OCD, even like schizophrenia, bipolar, all that stuff is really, really linked to certain B deficiencies. In fact, there was a forever ago they used to be able to treat schizophrenia with high dose niacin. Right. There are still people that do. And so it's really interesting stuff, but ketamine is fantastic. Now, most people do low dose, and so like you have to get a prescription for it, right? And it's not like you're partying and doing drugs, and it's like you put this tiny thing in between your cheek and your gums, and then you lay there and you feel pretty blissed out for about, I don't know, 20 minutes max, 15, 20 minutes, and then you get about your day. It's not like you're super high for a long time. But then you can also go to a clinic where they have ketamine infusions, or where they like knock you out like you're in surgery basically, and you wake up, and you only do that a couple times a week to a couple times a month depending on your severity. And that really helps to regenerate the neural pathways. And I would do ketamine therapy well in advance of potentially using psilocybin, because the way ketamine works is it builds new neural pathways. The way psilocybin works is it kicks you off your direct mode network to take different pathways in your brain to relearn things. But hear me out. If you don't rebuild new neural pathways for your brain to take, you always go back to that direct mode network. You always go back because you haven't built a new pathway. So do ketamine first to build up your pathways, and then potentially try psilocybin, because inevitably people were going to ask that. And this will be why this video doesn't get seen, because I put that in right out the gate, you know. But yeah. Question. Safe to use dried 4-year-old turkey-tailed mushrooms. Sometimes, despite all external reasons, I am ridiculously happy since calming my nervous system. Yeah, it's weird shit when that happens, right? Yeah, they're probably okay. I mean, they're not going to hurt you. Herbs and mushrooms in general start to lose their potency around year 2. But mushrooms, particular turkey tail, that's like a woody type mushroom, they really hold on to stuff, right? So as long as they've been kept like in an airtight container where they haven't been absorbing a bunch of water, moisture from the air, you should be good to use them. But they're not as potent as they could be probably. Okay, question. Herbs or diet recommendation for increasing fertility? I've been getting this one a lot lately. Yeah, it's always about nourishing your body. Look into the Weston Price way of eating. It's just like nourishing traditional foods. Um, and so you really need to nourish your body before it feels safe enough to be fertile and to have a baby. And I would look into doing that for like 6 months to a year, and then you could start working with things like red clover infusion is pretty good for increasing fertility, right? But really, it's all about like getting your mineral levels up and getting your healthy fat levels up and getting just all these bioavailable things that you get from eating whole, real, nourishing fats and organ meats and things like that, right? And then if it's meant to be, your body will definitely fall in line, right? Question: can you talk about comfrey and osteoporosis and where to order the comfrey? Um, you can get the comfrey from anywhere. Most of them are going to mark it as the wild type for liability reasons. So if they tell you that it's the type, basically the not the officinalis but the Russian comfrey, if they tell you that, they're afraid they're afraid that they'll be liable if you consume it, right? So you can just order from anywhere, but they're not going to be growing the wild type for harvest because wild comfrey, it's super tiny. It doesn't get very tall. Whereas the hybrid Russian variety comfrey that was grown for a livestock feed, it gets really tall. It can be like 5, 6 feet tall. It's huge. You can cut and come again. Nobody's growing the tiny comfrey to harvest, right? They're definitely growing the Russian variety. And you can use that like an infusion if you want for osteoporosis, but osteoarthritis, my brain just lost it. But you should probably look more into your vitamin K1 and vitamin K2 levels, your vitamin C, and your glutathione levels. Because if you don't have all of that, first of all, vitamin K puts calcium back into your bones to make them strong, and a lot of people, most people, are deficient in vitamin K's. But also, you need vitamin C and glutathione to do collagen production. And now people think of collagen for skin, but it's also like super present in all of your bones and your joints and everything. And if you aren't synthesizing new collagen, then you're going to start having like weak bones, right? And so I would probably look into that because you can use comfrey, but comfrey can't knit bone together if your body doesn't also have the resources to knit bone together, if that makes sense. Um, Question: what herbs help blood sugar levels? Lost it. Uh, Sorry if you mentioned it. I'm already no, I haven't. I haven't talked about that in this one yet. You could use something like maitake mushroom, which is like hen of the woods. I think that's what they also call it. Maitake's pretty good. True Ceylon cinnamon, right? It's pretty good for regulating blood sugar levels. But then there's also like the insulin plant, right? They all have different compounds in them that work in different ways, and usually it's about replacing something that your body is missing. But also make sure that you work on getting like rancid seed oils out of your diet as you're able, because they block something called the Randall cycle, which basically means that, like, think about, here's your cell that once glucose shuttled into it, you're eating all this rancid man-made seed oil and it covers it in like a sheen of oil, and this is very layman's term, and then it can't get the glucose into your cells, right? And so it's crazy how many people have like reversed type 2 and pre-diabetes by just removing seed oils and hyper processed foods from their diet. I mean, it's not really crazy if you think about it, but everybody blames it on sugar. They're like, sugar's bad, carbohydrates are bad, but every cell in your body, repeat after me, every cell in your body runs off of glucose. And if you don't eat it, it robs it from your muscles, right? And it jacks up your cortisol levels, and it actually makes you more insulin resistant. That way the glucose can be available for your brain, because you need glucose at all time or your brain will black out, just done for. There's not a time where your brain doesn't require glucose, right? But we think that it's the carbs that are causing the insulin resistance, but it's not. It's the other shit in our diet that's poisoning our body, right? Question: do you have a suggestion or a starting point for turkey tail mushroom dosage for breast cancer? A family member does chemo, and you know, there's probably some research out there, but I would just start slow and work your way up to whatever that they can tolerate and continue growing from there. From what I've seen, you have to take quite a lot of it. When I was younger and working with it through like cervical cancer, I basically started with small amounts, worked past the prebiotic content in it that might make you fart a bit for a while, right? Because you're feeding the beneficial bacteria. And then I just kind of worked I personally was probably drinking about a half a gallon of turkey tail tea a day at that point in my life. But it took me probably a month or two to get there, right? Um, so I would just say start low and work your way up, because there's not necessarily individual dosages for herbs like there are medications. Every body is different and how you will respond is different too. Question: are diabetics and insulin resistance different or the same thing? Diabetes and insulin resistance, potato, potato. Unless it's type 1. If it's type 1, it's an autoimmune issue with your pancreas. But type 2, it's all insulin resistance is what causes diabetes, and that's just what they're calling it, right? Question: any suggestion for someone who has ulcerative colitis? Yeah, definitely homemade milk kefir. It has to be homemade. The stuff you buy at the store is garbage. It's fake. It's not real. They can't legally sell milk kefir because they can't tame her. Meaning there's 80 plus amazing beneficial bacteria in milk kefir, but depending on the bioregion, like where you live, the bacteria is different for what you need. And because they can't standardize it, they can't sell it. So they take a few isolated strains that they know are in kefir, and they do a direct vat culture in a hyper sterile environment, and they make yogurt. But it's not the same. So homemade milk kefir, and also look into the correlation between vitamin C deficiency and colitis. It was really interesting to come across as I like dove into the world of being a person who's like genetically a pirate with scurvy. And so it was really interesting to come across how many people were like healing up their UC with high dose vitamin C. But it's definitely something to research before you just like jump into it, right? Okay, question: any tips for quitting caffeine? My right thigh actually contracts spasms when I go cold turkey. It's absolutely brutal. You could probably start by transitioning into green tea. Right, I know that. I know you're like, that's not enough, and your body's gonna be like, nuh-uh, and I want to quit. But here's the thing: green tea also has this thing called L-theanine in it. And L-theanine acts like a time release, let's call it that, where it buffers the amount of caffeine that's entering your liver so it can't slam your system at once. There is no L-theanine present in coffee whatsoever. Right, so what happens is, even though this has less caffeine, it'll act like time released caffeine. So you end up inevitably drinking less, but your body is like, I have a steady supply of caffeine. And then you can choose to slowly wean off of the green tea altogether. But I would get a high quality green tea. I'm not talking bagged garbage green tea. That shit is nasty. It's the dregs. It's what's left over after processing. There's nothing good about it. So find yourself like a nice loose leaf tea. Start with something easy like a white tea or a classic green tea, and just work your way from there. Question: any ideas for heart health, especially heartbeat? Um, so I really like Hawthorne. I really like Hawthorne for heart support. But also make sure that you're keeping an eye on your electrolytes as well. You really need that potassium, magnesium, sodium for your heart to be functioning correctly. And a lot of times when people have heart issues, their go-to is to stop eating sodium because the world has demonized sodium. But actually, like, you know how you're like mainly made of water? Actually, you're mainly made of salt water. You need sodium. What you don't need is the hyper bleached, chemicalized table salt. You need a high quality sea salt if you're not already incorporating that into your life. And that is a pretty good option to start with. And again, the Hawthorne would be good too. Also, super randomly, when I had really low vitamin C levels, because it was crazy. I eat fruit all the time, and I had like almost no vitamin C in my body. I wasn't healing. I was in the early stages of like real scurvy. My heart was skipping like crazy. I had AFib like crazy, and it was a real problem. So correcting that helped for me. So don't be afraid to look for potential nutrient deficiencies as well. Question: can you talk about PCOS? What herbs and vitamins you would recommend? Yeah, so polycystic ovarian syndrome. Basically, you have a ton of ovarian cysts, right? And the insidious thing about ovarian cysts is that these cysts also create testosterone. So, because your ovaries create testosterone, but it just goes into overdrive. And so people often think that testosterone is their enemy and they start like attacking that from that concept, right? A lot of people will end up being put on like high estrogen, like birth control to subside it. They do same thing for endo too, and it's a shame because what's actually happening is at some point you were probably estrogen dominant, and it allowed you to grow all these cysts, right? And so looking into supporting your hormone detox pathways with something as simple as like chamomile tea every day, 2 or 3 times a day. You can even work with something like pine pollen, which I know it's full of androgens, but it actually is really fantastically balancing for that. And then you could also start working with chickweed tincture, chickweed infusion, which is you're going to drink daily. You could do chickweed infused castor oil compresses. Chickweed is really fantastic for breaking down cysts. And so that kind of like supporting your hormones while also like going after like the cysts that are there, right? Because you kind of want them to like dissolve more than you do to rupture. I know that hurts when it ruptures. I've only ever had one ovarian cyst in my life, and I discovered that I had it when it ruptured. And so it was pretty bad. And then of course I went to the hospital where I'm at, and they're like, I think you're just on your period. I'm like, what? This hurts really bad. And then, they didn't give me any pain meds or anything. And when I finally got to see my gynecologist, she was like, oh my God, and here's some Oxycontin, because it was that bad. And then I discovered that I cannot take Oxycontin. I only took 1/4 of a pill, and I literally woke up screaming from the stomach cramps. So it turns out I cannot take that. And I was like, fuck. That was like worse pain than the ovarian cyst, so that was rough. But okay, so question: diagnosed August with uterine. Oh, lost it. With uterine polyps and ovary cyst, declined surgery, started chickweed. Last week, U.S. Showed cyst gone, but polyp unchanged. Pine pollen, other blood work, possible estrogen dominance. Yeah, if you know that you are estrogen dominant, that's your answer. So you can start looking into working with things like progesterone. I really like Progest E. It's something that Ray Pete, and he's dead now, but his wife is still continuing the company. I really like that. You would cycle it basically from like day of ovulation until the day before you bleed. Just people, they're like so complicated with how hard it is, but I'm like, no, it's 2 weeks before you bleed is when you start it, and usually take it in the evening because it might make you sleepy. And see if considering working with that helps. Of course, you could work with the pine pollen as well. You could consider looking into working with DHEA, but my problem with that and or wild yam for people who are already estrogen dominant is that even though the DHEA is like a master hormone and wild yam has disogen, which turns into DHEA, the problem is if you're estrogen dominant, it's more likely that the DHEA gets shifted into estrogen, right? Not to where you need it to go, which would probably be progesterone in your case. But if you work with vitamin E alongside of it, it's less likely to turn it into estrogen. But it's definitely something to research. Let me jump. Oh, whoops, almost. I don't know what's happening. Okay, my fat finger hit the. Okay, so what progesterone it's just a naturally occurring progesterone. They're probably extracting it from wild yams, from disogen probably. It's wild yam can be extracted into estrogen or progesterone, but you can also look on the website. He probably jumps into it. I know it's bioavailable. Okay, question. Are you familiar with Morgana, and would Morgana tincture be beneficial? I am not. I don't tend to work with a ton of like far off herbs if I can help it. I try to work with what's in my bioregion, and if you really get to know a handful of herbs pretty deeply, you'll find that you probably have something that will already do what that herb does, even though it's not from far away. Did I miss something? Oh, I missed a super. Okay. Thank you for the super, Marta. Are you familiar with Grant? Oh, God. Yes, I am familiar with Grant's work on vitamin A toxicity, quote unquote, not a vitamin. With Oregon meats, he discovered that ship scurvy was vitamin A toxicity. Throw everything from that man away. Oh my God. The level of wrong that that work is. It took over the repeat form, which is now the low toxin form. It's absolutely insane. So, first of all, as a person who lives with genetic scurvy, which means that I have mutations in my SVCT pathways, which are a sodium transport from my gut, which is how you uptake vitamin C. It's not because I have vitamin A in my body. Now, I'm not saying that vitamin A can't be toxic, because it can be, because it's a fat soluble vitamin that your body can't process out. But also, it's just as bad to not have enough. These people, first of all, if you go and look, there are lots of people that are like, oh my God, I've been doing this for 6 months to a year and I am suffering deeply. They're silenced, they're blocked, they're kicked off, they're not allowed to talk about it, right? But first of all, you need retinol in your body or you're going to go blind, or you're going to have low infertility, you're going to have thyroid issues. You don't need to go out there and eat so much beta carotene, which is different than retinol and what they mainly stop eating. It will turn you orange if you eat enough of it, but that doesn't mean that you also have to avoid like butter and most meats. These people are literally living off of ground beef and beans. And because they don't want to chance too much vitamin A from the cattle having access to grass, a lot of them are making sure to buy nasty feedlot meat because those animals don't have any vitamin A in their body because they're super deprived. And I'm not saying that if you're toxic in it, like if you took certain let's say acne medicine that really jacked up the retinol in your body, that can be dangerous, but it's so dangerous. Vitamin A is a vitamin. And I also say this as a person who lives with another genetic mutation that makes it hard for me to uptake retinol. In fact, my culture, Irish travelers, we have this thing to where we're so deficient in vitamin A that our babies are born like super fucked up. Like you have to get screened for it because they can come out like without any eyes and like super mutated, mentally disabled. So it's really insulting. And what was really funny is the time when, I know I'm just ranting about it, but when all of that, he does not have perfect health after 10 years. Have you looked at him? His eyes are so sunken in. His eyes are so sunken in. If you look at him from 10 years ago to now, he's aged like 50 years. He does not look well. He's also starting to get like the bulgy eyes. But it is just, it's rough to see. Right, it's rough to see. And right when that hysteria started hitting was when I discovered that I had almost no vitamin A in my body and I felt like I was fucking dying. I could not exist. And putting vitamin A, not beta carotene, but real vitamin A back into my body, like turned the light back on inside of me. It even made my eyes weren't red anymore. I had the capacity to function. I started doing tea times and these live Q&As. I had the capacity to function. So I'm not saying that, and I know that this will get me a bunch of hate and a bunch of people will come and yell at me for it, but the truth is, too much vitamin A is absolutely toxic. But not enough vitamin A will also fucking kill you. And again, I would challenge anybody who thinks that it is a toxicity and is following his work and is on the low toxin form. Go see what happens to the people that talk about how unwell they are after living such a restricted diet. Right? You guys think you can't eat fucking an orange. How sad is that? Don't you miss oranges? Right? Don't you miss a carrot? Don't you miss anything? Like you can't eat butter, you can't eat animal fats, you can't, there's retinol in everything. And I'm sorry, but nature doesn't make a mistake, but man's ego certainly does. And he makes a shit ton of money off of telling people that if you just starve yourself long enough of these foods, eventually you'll feel better. Oh, you feel worse? You're just detoxing. Eventually you'll feel better. So that is the end of my rant. Anyhow, question. Apprenticeship available, or can I have a conversation with you about options. No, I don't have any apprenticeships available. I was planning on it in 2019, and then 2020 happened, and then I blew up, and people started to threaten to kill me. And I'm sure that rant I just did about Grant will not fucking help anything because I'll be on that radar. But yeah, so but I am for members. I am working on towards the end of probably next month or the middle of next month where I gift 2 one-on-one like research consultations, and they get recorded and shared with everybody. So you'd have to be okay with that, but it's free, and I'll just pick it from random drawings from members. Um, is castor oil good for your skin? Yeah, castor oil is pretty good for your skin. It's really thick though, so I wouldn't do it like every night, and or I would cut it with something like avocado oil. It also might be pretty nice cut with something like emu oil, which is also really good for your skin because it's real sticky. I would feel claustrophobic putting it like all over my face. People also really like castor oil. People really like castor oil for like glaucoma support, eye support, growing, thicker hair and things like that. Question: what to do for nasal polyps? When is surgery the best option versus home remedy? I've not really done much research into nasal polyps. It might be hard to get anything herbal in there, right? Just because it's your nasal passage and it's such a sensitive area because it's like right in your brain, right? And so that might be a little bit tricky. And it just, I don't know, if surgery wasn't like how invasive is the surgery? I assume they'd go internally versus opening you up. It might be worth just having the surgery if you can. Okay, so magnesium oil, do you use weekly? It is good in summer as a spray. I like to use magnesium oil daily. Your body needs magnesium every day. It does hold on to it, but it's still like relying on it from food intake, right? So if you're not eating like a ton of like super magnesium rich foods, drinking coconut water, seafood, things like that, it's not a bad idea to put it on daily, regardless if it's summer or winter. Okay, question. What do you think could cause wild fluctuations in blood pressure? I can't listen with sound now. I live for calls at work, but I'll watch it on the replay. Thanks in advance. Have you been like checked for POTS? That's where like when you bend down and you stand back up, everything goes. You'd have to have like a tilt table test done. But usually, when your blood pressure is like going all over, it's something to do with POTS, which ultimately is about your parasympathetic nervous system isn't functioning right. So, like, you're not getting the right signals to like your heart and everything to maintain your blood pressure flow. So, but also make sure a lot of people with POTS have to have a fair amount of sodium, right? Make sure that you're not like really cutting back on like the high quality like sea salt type sodium. I'm not talking about table salt, right? But it's definitely something to consider being screened for if you haven't yet, if your blood pressure's all over the place. Question: would a Jell-O made from beef gelatin and orange juice be an effective combo for daily collagen intake? Well, the problem with orange juice is that when you buy it from the store, if it's not fresh pressed, it's been pasteurized, and vitamin C can get killed off by the heat. So it doesn't have as much vitamin C as you'd like it to, and even with fresh pressed, once it's been pressed and it's exposed to light and it ages, the vitamin C kind of degrades. But it's still a good option. I just wouldn't consider that fully vitamin C intake, right? Because even an orange doesn't have enough to like keep you going. You need quite a few oranges. But I do like that. Sometimes I add cream with it and a little bit of vanilla, and it's like a fucking orange Julius Jell-O. Thank you so much for the super M Drescher. Ideas for blood clots and calves, not acute but chronic. Well, I'd wonder why your body's creating those clots, right? You could look into working with something like Serpites, it's like a supplement. It's relatively expensive. It's made from cocoons of all things, but it's a specific protein enzyme that breaks down proteins, and so a lot of people use them for blood clots, right? You would be want to be mindful if you were working with blood thinning herbs because I'm afraid you'll dislodge one. right? So I would look more towards the serpentes because it would break them down versus just make your blood thinner and dislodge them, if that makes sense. So definitely something to dig into. It's like Serpeteese, and I fucking suck at spelling, but that'll probably get you close to there. Okay. Let me jump down here. Question: 12-year-old son developed heavy acne on arms, face still clear, odd spot. What can I adjust or add to help? Well, he's probably going through, hormone changes, but also if he eats processed food, he's probably got a little more estrogen in his body than he needs, especially for a boy. You might consider working with just something like chamomile to help, like chamomile tea daily to help knock out that excess estrogen via your like detox pathways through your liver, right? But then of course look at my yarrow spritz video. Like yarrow murder kills acne regardless if it's like hormonal or cystic. Now I'm not saying it can't come back, but stopping the infection from spreading, like, so sometimes you have a pimple, there's bacteria in it, and it pops, and you wipe it away, but as you wipe it, that bacteria spreads across the rest of your pores. Right, and so it becomes this vicious cycle, but yarrow kills gram-positive bacteria on contact, so it's a pretty good option. Okay, and my admin, my daughter here, she's 17, and if she gets a pimple, it's like, where's the yarrow? And then the pimple's gone, right? So it's pretty great stuff. Um, Made the yarrow already. Well, then you're already on the right track there for sure. Okay, so do you have any advice on herbs, vitamins, and natural remedies for scalp psoriasis? Yeah, if you've confirmed that it's psoriasis and not a fungal infection, you could just start working on your liver health. Psoriasis and eczema is usually your liver screaming for help. Right, so you want to start working with things like dandelion root tea and milk thistle, but start slow because milk thistle can make you feel like a pile of human trash if you go too fast, right? Um, but then you could start doing things like remove all seed oils from your diet. I know it's hard because food is expensive, and I'm not telling everybody to just go throw everything away in their kitchen. But as you continue to shop and replace the food you're using up, start shopping on the outside and start looking at packages, even if it's organic, because seed oils are in everything. Basically, if it's not avocado oil, if it's not, like animal fat or coconut based, it's a fucking seed oil and it's rancid and it makes your liver really unhappy. But there are a lot of people who have removed seed oils from their diet and completely resolved their psoriasis and their eczema. Okay, so question. Any tips for recovery from chemo and radiation once treatment has ended? Well, I would start really like babying your thyroid, right? And it sounds crazy, but like we need iodine, and radiation in particular is a type of iodine, right? Chemo knocks all vitamin C out of your body, and then radiation can knock all other iodine out of your body. So if you start working with things like seaweed to support your thyroid function, but your whole body needs it, make sure that you're not eating anything that has bromelain in it, which is like a nasty dough conditioner that's illegal in every other country, but they put it in fruit juices sometimes, like a juice type drink. They put it in bread. They use it as a bread conditioner. Most, if not all, commercial bread in the US has bromelain in it. Bromelain competes in the receptors for iodine, so like you can be taking an iodine, but it doesn't matter if your body's loaded with that, right? And then like working with vitamin C to just kind of like help your body repair its cells. So you'd also need something like the glutathione, and working with like high dose like gelatin type stuff, because you need to help your cells repair themselves. Right, and so to do that, you need collagen synthesis. Like, you are held together by collagen. And people think about it for their skin. I know I sound like a broken record when I say it, but like, if you do not have collagen, you will start like, you will just sloth off of your own bones. As creepy as that sounds, and it's like a real fucking fear of mine. Living with genetic scurvy, like learning about everything that collagen does in your body because it's synthesized with the help of vitamin C was like terrifying to me. Like, oh my god. Like, it's just collagen is life. They say water is life, but collagen is actually your life. Okay, I'm going to answer one more and I'm going to jump off because it's been about 40 minutes. Question: when looking into black salve per your recommendation, bunch on horror. Yeah, a bunch of horror headlines about how dangerous it is, and it came up. Is there a reason for this? Are they legitimate concerns? Is it the bloodroot? It's absolutely the bloodroot. It's absolutely the bloodroot. When I was selling black salve, and I did for a decade, it didn't have bloodroot in it, and it didn't need bloodroot in it. I would just kind of look into making your own minus the bloodroot, because bloodroot will eat a hole in your flesh. And I'm not saying that that doesn't have a time and a place, but people get desperate and they don't do it with any real guidance, and they start just putting it on themselves, and it eats away at their flesh. And then because they have no guidance, they end up, and they're usually immune compromised, somebody with cancer or whatnot, and then they get a horrible fucking infection or sepsis, right? Because you've ate a hole in your flesh. But from my standpoint, I use herbs that support the cellular structure. I really like using comfrey root as well as comfrey, yarrow, usnea, plantain, pine pitch, and then a ton of charcoal, or you could even use clay if you'd like. Either way, it's acting like a poultice, right? So you're having all these really supportive antibacterial herbs, and then either the charcoal or the clay is going to pull out whatever you're trying to get out. I wouldn't really necessarily rely on it for cancer because it's not eating away at it, but like I don't really feel like assaulting the body. And like, I don't know, if you're gonna try to, if you have like cancer, I don't know why I keep pointing at my arm, but if you have cancer in your arm or somewhere, like, just let them cut it out. Let them cut it out, and then you can start using stuff to heal up that area versus trying to use a salve that like fucking eats a hole through your bone, right? Like, that's crazy shit to me. Like, bloodroot comes from a time of puke, purge, poke, bleed medicine, right? And there's lots of like old school remedies that work that way, but you have to understand that that came from a time where we didn't have different options, right? Where it was like, well, Jim, we got to eat a fucking hole in your arm or you're gonna die, right? Versus being like, we can like cut that out and take care of it, you know. And remember, and it's always your choice. You can have a doctor remove your cancer and then just decide not to do chemo. Right, like, you don't have to tell them that that's your intentions, but sometimes they won't remove cancer if you don't agree to do chemo or treatment. But a lot of people feel like because they don't have that option, you might be using black salve for something else. But they feel like because they don't have that option, that they have no choice but to try to take care of removing it themselves, and that's where like the black salve with bloodroot becomes a real health hazard. Okay, let me jump way down here. Anyhow, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you for letting me rant and jabber and be a real human. If you would like to support my capacity to do those things, to keep a roof over my head and tea in my pot, consider becoming a member. It's just a way to throw me a couple bucks a month. There's nothing really hidden behind a paywall. You do get early access to videos if I ever make them again. No, I will. I'll get back to making videos. And you do get a once weekly members only Q&A. It's just a place where I'm more likely to see your questions, and there aren't as many trolls and things like that. And the next one's coming up this Sunday. You can also consider calling things home from my shop. You can use the one-time code TEATIME, TEATIME, to save 10% off of anything that you'd like to call home. I've got books, and there's some capsules. There's something for everybody. If you can't do that, or even if you can, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share. All of that goes a really long way in supporting my capacity to like dump my brain out, to be a real human, to help people realize that they're smart enough to do this too and take their health back into their own hands. So it's a really meaningful way to support my channel. So thanks so much for watching, folks, and I'll see members this Sunday. Bye.